put that
just
one back.
hang up on a dude.
Yeah. Dave in Chicago, thanks for waiting.
Hey guys.
How are you?
I'm doing really good. Huge fan of the show. First time calling in. Just a real quick. The earlier caller about the AA stuff, Matt, you really hit it on the head because I was kind of forced into experiencing some of that myself, and it just really the way they run the groups just really rubbed me the wrong way.
And every group is run differently, so I mean, your mileage may vary.
Yeah. But it was, I really stopped going, and I kind of almost got sober on my own just to spite them. But the thing that I wanted to talk about is this strange kind of circumstance that in America, like the Constitution has a pretty explicit separation of church and state. The only thing that the government should say about religion is nothing. And yet we still have one of the most religious developed countries in the world in terms of population. Whereas in Europe, in Scandinavia, excuse me, they are much more secular as a community, but in their constitutions, there's still a pretty surprising amount of state-endorsed religious stuff, like collecting tithes or paying tax to the church, like in England. Even in Germany, at least you get to pick which church you pay a tithe to. But I was just wondering why you think that is. Why is there that weird paradox almost?
I think it's because of that. There's an idea running around which I think has some merit to it, which is that if you have a state religion, it squashes competition among religions, and if you don't, as we don't in the United States, then it increases the competition among religions. They're now free to compete in this area of ideas, and so you get more religion. When it is just a ward of the state and it's kind of forced on you to some extent, where it's taught as part of school and you have this one official church religion, even if they have other religions there, it kind of becomes, this is what my grandparents did, this is what people long ago did. It really doesn't have that much appeal to me. Okay. And then in the United States, of course, you have mega churches with rock bands and video productions that, while they don't rival Rush, they would rival a lot of smaller bands.
Yeah. And I guess if you look at the history of Europe, with the monarchies and the divine right and how much crap that got into, do you think people just kind of got burnt out on it just because it was forced?
Well, I think that the reason that the Founding Fathers made sure that government and religion could not be intermingled in American politics back when they were drafting the Constitution was because they had all come from Europe and from these cultures where religion and politics were constant bedfellows, and each corrupted the other.
Right.
And so they could see their hundreds and hundreds of years of history testifying to exactly how damaging religion and state mixed could be.
Right.
To one another, to the populations that they're meant to support. So they wanted to make sure that that was a thing that didn't happen here.
Yeah, so. And I guess just another thing is I've lived all over the Middle East, and I've kind of experienced some of the more, I guess you would say, theocratic governments, especially really bad for my mom under Islam rule. But do you think that either we're getting to a point now, or do you think it'll happen in the future where Islam will undergo that kind of backlash, where they'll kind of try to become more secular because it's been forced on them for so long?
Well, I think you're already seeing bits and pieces of that. I mean, you've got a split. You've got different versions of Islam, even around the world. And then when you get, for example, what you see Muslims doing in the UK is different from what you see Muslims doing in the United States. There's not a significant movement of Muslims in the United States that are trying to get Sharia law recognized and have any real sense of it, because there are differences about the Constitution, the way we do business. But I think in much the same way that kind of Christianity was dragged kicking and screaming from the Dark Ages, I think that Islam may well be dragged kicking and screaming towards a new enlightenment. Hopefully they all just kind of fade away to nothing or next to nothing.
Yeah, it's not going to happen anytime soon, though, simply because we still have quite a number of very powerful nations on the planet that are open Islamist theocracies and very oppressive ones. Whereas it's been, I think, several centuries since we've had an openly oppressive Christian theocracy, like an entire nation run that way. And so I guess people have had a head start, in having an enlightenment that is, kind of going against Christian theocracy and those kinds of values. And
I think the trend is towards a more secular world overall, and I think reason and science and evidence tend to win out. But things also kind of go in cycles, and so there's a period where we get more and more religious until it just like breaks its own back, and then it drops off. But the trend seems to be towards a move away from at least the old religions. Obviously there's people engaging in all sorts of superstitious New Age woo crap, which I think is probably going to take the place of religion for a lot of people.
Yeah. I guess it just reminds me of, I remember Christopher Hitchens talking about Iran and how the younger generations of Iran are so much more, secular than the previous generations. I think just because it was so forced down on them in their parents' generation.
Yeah. You want to end religion? Get unfettered, unblocked internet access to everybody in the world.
Yeah. And that just reminds me of a joke that he said. He's actually, it was jokingly, of course, in favor of compulsory religious education because that's the most surefire way to produce atheists.
Yep. And I've supported comparative religions courses, and I don't think they should just be elective. I think that this is something important that everybody should learn about. But
I think that's the more salient question that I've seen floating around, particularly online, which is, is the internet going to be the thing that finally does religion in? Will religion survive the internet?
Right.
And that's probably not likely because now anyone, the marketplace of ideas is now much freer.
But the internet's just a fad. It'll go away any day now.
No, as long as there are cats on this planet, there will be the internet. So that's not a worry.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the call, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Is it true that I think the only remaining theocracies on Earth are Islamist countries? Or are there other religions where they're I know India still kind of has its caste system in place, but is it? I think it does.
I know there are official state religions all over the place.
Yeah.
Virtually everywhere. How much of a theocracy they have?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm a stupid American. I speak one language. Yeah. I don't care about too much stuff beyond, even Austin, because I'm just an idiot.
Yeah.